All right, ladies and gentlemen, adding and subtracting rational expressions. So far we've simplified, we've multiplied, and we've divided. And now we're going to be adding and subtracting these fractions, okay, these rational expressions. Now, as is the case when you're adding or subtracting regular fractions, like non-polynomials, you want to have common denominators before you add or subtract. So that's the first thing we're going to have to look for before we continue the addition or the subtraction part, okay? So notice here we have two different denominators. If they're both different, that means one of them is going to be larger than the other, okay? So what we want is to have them both the same. And so in other words, we're looking for the common denominator here, and that would be 24, okay? So 8 times 3 is 24, and 6 times 4 is 24. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and multiply each side by the number that's going to make each one a 24, okay? So I'm going to multiply the 8 by 3, and now I have to multiply the numerator as well, okay? If I multiply this by 3 over 3, it's basically like I'm multiplying by a form of 1. Notice 3 over 3 is a whole fraction. That's a 1. So basically I'm not changing the value of this expression here, okay? Now notice here, that'll give me a 24x to the third if I multiply that, okay? Now over here though, notice I want to end up with a 24x to the third as well. Now if I multiply this side by 4 over 4, that'll give me the 24, but then I only have 24x. So that means I also need to multiply by x squared over x squared right here to get me the 24x to the third. Notice x squared times x will give me the x to the cubed that I need. Okay, so now let's multiply the numerators here. 3 times 1 is 3, and then 7 times 4, x squared is going to be 28x squared. Okay? Now, we're going to go ahead and add, but notice here we must have like terms in order to actually combine these. So since they are not like terms, right, then that means that this is just going to be 28x squared plus 3. Over what? Over 24x cubed. Remember that when we are adding fractions, the denominator just gets carried over. The denominator remains the same, okay? So this would be my answer, 28x to the second power plus 3 all over 24x to the third. Next one. Notice here, different denominators. This is more like what you would see in Algebra 1 where we have different denominators. Notice here, what's the common denominator here? It would be 15. And so I'm going to multiply each side by the number that would make this turn into a 15. So this side here I would multiply by 5 over 5, and this side over here by 3 over 3. Notice this is subtraction, so we'll take care of that when we have common denominators. So 5 times 3 is 15, and then minus, and then over 15 also. So notice all I needed to do was multiply by a 5 and a 3 on this side. Okay, and so now let's multiply the numerators. 5 times 4x is 20x. And then 8 times 3 is 24. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write equals over 15 because my denominator is not going to change. Okay? Now, are these like terms here? 20x and 24? No, they are not. So I'm just going to write it as 20x minus 24. Okay? But notice here I can factor out a common factor here. Let's see. It looks like it's going to be 4. 4 goes into 20 and 4 goes into 24. So I can actually factor out a 4 here. And let's see, 4 times what is 20? Well, 5. We have 5x right there. And then 4 times what is 24? Well, that would be a 6. So 4 times negative 6 here would give me the negative 24, okay? And notice it does not change our answer here. Just we factored it out. But the 4 and the 15, which are both factors here, I cannot simplify here. I cannot reduce those. So then that means that's my answer. Okay? We have 3 more problems. These are considered the easy ones. Notice here, this one's easy because the denominators are already the same. It's 5x plus 8. So that means I can go ahead and do what's on top. So let me just carry over the 5x plus 8. And now notice here, these are actually like terms. They both have x to the third here, okay? So negative 5x to the third plus 6x to the third is just going to be x to the third. Notice 6 minus 5 is just 1. And that's it. Notice here, x to the third and x, I cannot cancel out 1 from each because notice this is not a factor here. This is a like term, x, and the x. Actually, they're not even like terms. Okay, this is 5x plus 8. That counts as one factor of 5x plus 8. And then x to the third counts as just one factor of x to the third. So these are not, they cannot be simplified further. Okay. Notice here, I have 1x here and then a 3x here. So they both have the same number of x's in common, but not the 3. So all I need to do to this side is multiply this by 3 over 3. Notice here, if I multiply 3 times x, that'll give me the 3x. So this will be 3x on the bottom, and then that one, I don't need to multiply by anything because it's already in the form that I want, 3x, okay? Now, 3 times 9 is 27, and then 5 is just 5, right? So now I'm able to subtract here. Notice here, let me just carry over the denominator. 27 minus 5 is going to be 22. That's it. Okay? And if you can simplify, you can, but in this case, you aren't able to. Okay? Let's finish with this one here. Notice the denominators are already alike, so that means I can just go ahead and bring this over. But wait a second. This is very important here that you notice this here. We have a negative 6x plus 3 minus, and then we have this 3x minus 1 binomial here. Now, what we're going to do here when we're subtracting, really, we're distributing a negative 1. Okay, so think of it like this. Think of it as addition of a negative here, but we're going to distribute this negative 1, okay? So let's do this here. Negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x, and negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1, okay? So once I distributed the negative 1, I can actually cancel out or cross out this expression below. Okay, now I can combine my like terms. Negative 6x plus negative 3x, that's going to be negative 9x, and then 3 plus 1 is going to be 4. Okay? And I can't factor this and I can't factor that, so that means that's my answer there.